kettlebell is the ultimate training tool for building functional strength and a lean physique. That is, if you avoid the 5 kettlebell mistakes that I'll be covering in today's video. For those of you who are new here, I'm Coach Gabe, and I help busy professionals build functional strength and shed body fat with time-efficient kettlebell workouts. So, if you want to maximize your functional strength gains with kettlebell training and make sure you aren't leaving any potential on the table, stick around to the end of this video so you can reap the benefits of this extremely versatile training tool. With that said, let's dive into mistake number 1. This mistake stems from the most frequently asked question that I get from new kettlebell enthusiasts. What weight should I use? Nothing will hinder your results faster than using the wrong weight. If you choose a weight that is too light, you won't get enough training stimulus to build serious strength. Use a weight that is too heavy, and it's easy to get discouraged and give up before you ever really get started, which is why I am an advocate of starting with 3 different size kettlebells. One kettlebell that is light enough to use for movements like overhead presses, one that is heavy enough to challenge your legs, and one somewhere in between that you can use for movements like kettlebell swings and snatches. For most beginner men, those weights are going to be 12 kilograms, 16 kilograms, and 20 kilograms, and for women, those weights are going to be 8 kilograms, 12 kilograms, and 16 kilograms. For more seasoned lifters on the men's side, those weights will look something more like 16 kilogram, 24 kilogram, and 32 kilogram, whereas on the ladies' side, they will look more like 12 kilogram, 16 kilogram, and 24 kilogram for the more experienced lifters. Now, with the weight issue resolved, let's go ahead and address mistake number 2, which is treating kettlebell training like bodybuilding training. If you are used to the traditional bodybuilding split, where you do 1 day for legs, 1 day for chest, 1 day for back, 1 day for shoulders, 1 day for arms, it's easy to get stuck in the mindset of what muscle group does this exercise target. However, when training with kettlebells, it's important to shift that mindset and understand that one of the perks of the kettlebell is that many of the movements don't isolate muscle groups. Rather, they integrate many large muscle groups at once. For example, a kettlebell swing utilizes the glutes, hamstrings, quads, and challenges muscles of the forearms, and the lats even get involved decelerating the kettlebell. Hell, even the squat variations like a kettlebell front squat incorporate the upper body due to supporting the weight in the front rack position. So rather than thinking about kettlebell training in the form of targeting certain muscle groups, you can simply balance muscle groups by training movement patterns. So if over the course of a week you perform a squat pattern, a hinge pattern, a push, a pull, some rotation movement, and some sort of carry variation with the kettlebell, you will have hit every major muscle group and will maintain solid muscular balance across joints without the need for thinking about which specific muscle group a movement targets. And speaking of targeting muscle groups, this leads me to mistake number 3. Everybody wants a strong core. However, there's a lot of poor information out there on building true core strength, which leads to people performing exercises like the kettlebell Russian twist or the kettlebell around the world. But let me ask you this. If you were trying to build strong legs, would you perform high repetition squats with low weight, or would you do low repetition squats with high weight? Chances are you would opt for the latter, low reps with high weight, because that's how strength is built with any muscle group, including the core. So rather than training your core with high repetition Russian twists or around the worlds, which we would call muscular endurance training with literally any other muscle group, because that's what it actually is, try picking up heavy weight and carrying it on one side of your body, which challenges muscles on the opposite side of the torso to stabilize your vertebral column. Think about incorporating rotational exercises that load the torso, like kettlebell windmills, or even rapidly accelerating an object with something like a single arm kettlebell swing, which challenges core stability like crazy and requires a ton of tension to maintain good spinal position and less reps, thus building actual core strength. And speaking of rapidly accelerating and decelerating objects, this next mistake is one of the worst kettlebell offenses you can make, and that is squatting the kettlebell swing. This is also one of the fastest ways to spot someone who is brand new to kettlebell training. And just so you are aware, the kettlebell swing is intended to be a hinge pattern that trains powerful hip extension. So you want to take advantage of the stretch reflex from your glutes and hamstrings by hinging at the hip rather than squatting the hips down. And squatting the hips down tends to lead to excessive use of the shoulders because it stops the momentum of the kettlebell in the backswing, which defeats the purpose of the exercise in the first place. And if you're not sure what the difference between a squat and a hinge pattern is, with a hinge, our hips stay above our knee, and your hips move in more of a forward and backward type motion. Whereas in a squat, the hips tend to drop down to knee level or below and is a more up and down motion. So remember, hinge the swing, don't squat it. Now, at this point in the video, we have covered a lot. We've covered kettlebell size selection, how to build core strength the right way, the difference between kettlebell training and a bodybuilding type split, but there is still one mistake that you must avoid if you want to maximize your strength gains with the kettlebell. And that mistake is grabbing the kettlebell like a dumbbell in the front rack position. A ton of beginners grab the kettlebell and let the handle sit straight across their palm in the front rack position. And what happens in movements like single arm front squats and movements like overhead presses, and even in movements like kettlebell cleans, is the wrist gets bent backwards into extension and creates a great deal of discomfort, thus limiting the amount of weight that you can lift and leaving all sorts of strength gains on the table. But the reality is that the kettlebell isn't designed to be held like a dumbbell. When in the front rack position, the handle of the kettlebell is actually designed to sit across the heel of the palm at a 45-degree angle, which allows you to maintain a neutral wrist, thus eliminating wrist pain from movements like kettlebell cleans, front squats, and overhead presses. And by simply learning this one position, you can smoothly string together exercise after exercise in more advanced kettlebell complexes, which will reduce your overall exercise time per session while getting a full body workout. And just like that, you now know how to avoid the top 5 kettlebell mistakes that leave strength gains on the table. But unfortunately, knowing what not to do isn't enough to build epic functional strength. So if you want to know the best practices for building functional strength with the kettlebell, check out this video here, and I will see you on the next one.